Whenever I go and talk to a homeowner about a deck, what I'm right off the gate, right out of the gate, I would say almost every homeowner is asking me the difference between wood and composite. We find more wood being put on decks than we do composite. Within wood, we find generally two species of wood being used. There are some others, but generally we're finding cedar or we're finding a pressure-treated pine being used. Once we say, okay, are we talking wood or composite, then we get into, well, where do we want the budget for this deck to be? And that's one of the biggest challenges with the deck, right? Because whenever we're talking the deck space of a home, we're talking a want space. We're talking a relaxed space. We're not talking a must-have. And in our market here in mid-Missouri, it's a space that you don't get to use 12 months out of the year. So you're talking about a very large investment into a space that you don't get 100% use out of. So that's difficult. I would say almost everybody that I talk to, though, wants to know composite, right? What is composite? When we talk composite, we have to again establish what kind of composite board are we talking about, because not all composite boards are made the same, right? Not all composite boards are going to have the same warranties, they're going to have the same life cycles, and not all composite boards are actually worth the money that you're going to spend on, right? So the first thing, we have a resin material of some kind, we have a wood fiber or some fiber of some kind mixed together composite board, right? So when most people say composite, that's what they're talking about. What we need to then establish is that there has to be a polymer cap of some kind, right? And depending on the manufacturer, depends on what they call it. But a capping of some kind, at least on the top and the sides. We like to see it all the way around the board, but at least on the top and the sides of the board, a composite board. At that point, we have a quality board. Once the board meets that, we are also meeting a minimum 25-year warranty, right? And some of those warranties run all the way up to 35 or 40 years. In our market, we also have Azek decking. Azek is a brand under TimberTech. TimberTech makes a true composite board, as I explained, and they also make Azek. And Azek is not actually a composite board, it's a vinyl board, okay? It's a board that does not have the fibers of resin and all that in it, right? The board itself is just a manufactured board. It's all man-made product. That's kind of where we go with the composite, but most popular decking, that's probably the most popular I'm asked about is composite. That's what most homeowners want, because we're talking low maintenance, long life cycle, a lot of enjoyment, little work. Where a lot of homeowners find themselves is in a pressure treated deck, right? Going back to the budget, one of the first things I said. A lot of homeowners are putting pressure treated decking on. That doesn't mean it's the most popular or most wanted. It means it's the most affordable, which is why it's getting put on, okay? And there's a lot of benefits to it. There really are, from the, hey, I'm going to be in the house for 5 years. I want a nice deck for 5 years, but I don't want to spend money on something for the next guy to enjoy for 30 years that I don't get. Well, that pressure treated wood deck is going to give you exactly what you're asking for, right? What I get, probably the most popular question I get whenever we're talking decks from the homeowners I work with is, I want to leave the framing in place. Can we just put a new surface over my framing? A lot of that, it depends. What condition is the framing in? Generally, the answer is going to be no. Occasionally, we'll say, hey, your frame is in great shape. For whatever reason, the deck surface has failed, whether it's a non-treated, pressure-treated board. By non-treated, I mean it's never been stained, it hasn't been maintained in any way. That deck surface has gone away, it needs to be replaced. If somebody's ever talking about composite, though, and they say, can we lay back over our existing framing? My question is, we're going to take a pressure-treated board, right, that we know is eventually going to reach life cycle and has already been in the home anywhere from 10 to 20 years. And I'm going to put a board on top of it that's going to last 25 to 50 years, okay? Well, that little bit of money that we're saving today, right? And by a little bit, maybe we're talking a couple $1,000s, maybe in some cases $10,000. That money we're saving today, we are only saving it to put something on that we're spending a lot of money on, expecting that to fail, right? So in that scenario, we want to rip that whole deck down just about every time we're talking composite, start completely over, start from scratch.